We're going to be learning about the patterns of genocide and connecting it to our novel, The Giver. Genocide is a form of one-sided mass killing in which a state or other authority intends to destroy a group as that group and memberships in it are defined by the perpetrator. So remember, the reason that we study history is so that we do not allow it to happen again, even the most heinous events such as genocide. So the word genocide comes from the Greek word genos, which means birth, race, or similar kind. Side comes from the Latin word sida, meaning to cut or kill. Genocide means any of the following acts committed within the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. And so the perpetrators or people in charge will single out a specific type of person, whether that is by race or religion, and cause any of these acts. Killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the group, or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So they are trying to eradicate this type of person that they feel is unworthy to be part of the world. So this tells you a little bit about how the word was coined, and all cultures have categories to distinguish between us and them by ethnicity, race, religion, or nationality. Okay, so here you're going to be taken to another slide presentation that talks about the 8 stages of genocide in detail. And so it starts off with classification, symbolization, dehumanization, organization, polarization, preparation, extermination, and denial. And so I'd like for you to take a moment to go and read these slides of the 8 stages. It's really important to be able to identify if any of these stages are occurring in our current lives so that we can recognize that it may lead up to something terrible. And so we're going to use the Holocaust today as an example, looking at the different patterns of genocide and how it went from the beginning to the concentration camps. And so after the end of World War I, they had a Treaty of Versailles, and Hitler was sent to prison for 9 months. And in prison, he wrote this book called Mein Kampf. And this book had all of his ideas of what a perfect world would be, such as a utopia that we learned about earlier this year. Hitler ran for president and lost, and the current president or prime minister decided to elect him as a chancellor of Germany because he was hoping to unite his followers, and so that he could, get everyone on board to have a better cohesive government. So when Hitler became chancellor, he took out the current president, and he declared himself president in 1934. Then the first, they started to send out propaganda, hate museums depicting Jews as the problem of all of Germany. And Germany was in a bad state because of World War I, and they were in debt, and they were hungry, and they wanted somebody to blame. And Hitler decided that it was the Jews that were the reason that we were not thriving as a country. And so he spread a bunch of propaganda about how Jews were the enemy. And so the first event was the Night of Broken Glass, and we're going to talk about that. Germany invades Poland. They open up the first concentration camp in Auschwitz. Then we as a country decided to get involved in the war when they attacked us in Pearl Harbor. And so we declared war on Japan and we joined World War II. And that is one of the main reasons why the Holocaust is so well known and studied here in the United States, because we were physically involved in the liberation of all the Jews that were being persecuted. So we'll talk about the ghettos, and then in May of 1945, Germany finally surrenders. And so from the moment he became president in 1934 to 1945, it was over 10 years of um, just of a dystopian type place in Germany. So the Holocaust was a mass murder of approximately 6 million Jews during World War II. The program of systematic state-sponsored murder by Nazi Germany was led by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party throughout German-occupied territory. 9 million Jews resided in Europe before the Holocaust, and two-thirds of them were killed. There was over 40,000 concentration camps in Germany, and German-occupied territory were used to concentrate, hold, and kill Jews and other victims. Besides Jews, other groups that were killed during the Holocaust were the Romanians, people with disabilities, homosexuals, Soviet prisoners of war, Polish and Soviet civilians. The persecution and genocide were carried out in stages. The first stage was classification. The Nazi propaganda played an integral role in advancing the persecution and ultimately the destruction of Europe's Jews. It incited hatred and fostered a climate of indifference to their fate. And so the Nazis decided that any Jews were the enemy, and they sent out flyers and traveling museums and movies, and they posted it on radio, depicting Jews as the enemy. So they classified them, and then they polarize them, which means they divide them. So various laws to remove the Jews from civil society, most prominently the Nuremberg laws. And so Hitler put out these laws in 1935 that said any full Jew was anyone with 3 Jewish grandparents. So even if you were 1/3 not Jewish, you were still a Jew because you had 3 grandparents. And ironically, Hitler had a grandparent that was Jewish. They would not allow you to marry between the Jews. Um, all marriages of Jews were now invalid, and Jews could not employ household female subjects. Um, any person who violates this prohibition under Article 1 will be punished with a prison sentence. Jews cannot be citizens of Germany. They had no right to vote in political affairs, or they could not hold public office. They decided that Jews could not attend school anymore. And so these laws put into place a divide between Jews and non-Jews of Germany. And then the next stage would be symbolization. In 1939, all Jews over the age of 10 were to wear a Jewish star, which was a white armband affixed with a blue six-sided star over the right upper sleeve or one's outer garments. And there were heavy penalties for those who were caught not wearing it. And so everybody was identified by wearing this Star of David, which was a symbol for the Jewish religion. And then dehumanization, and this was done by their hate propaganda to ensure the Nazi message communicated through art, music, theater, film, books, radio, educational materials, and the press. And then they became organized. And on this night, called the Night of Broken Glass, that took place in 1938, a young Jewish man killed a German soldier, and then they got out and they coordinated a series of attacks against all Jewish businesses and people throughout Germany. Orders were given that the spontaneous rioters were to take no measures endangering non-Jewish German life or property, but they were not to subject subject foreigners to violence, but they were to remove all synagogues, archives prior to vandalizing synagogues, and any property of Jewish communities. And they were to take all of their material and confiscate it. The orders were also indicated that police officials should arrest as many Jews as local jails could hold, preferably young, healthy men. And Hitler's young members across the country shattered the shop windows of estimated 7,500 Jewish-owned commercial establishments, and 30,000 Jewish males were arrested and transferred, most of them to local prisons. And so this orchestrated, organized night, and they call it the Night of Broken Glass because all of these Jewish-owned companies were destroyed. And then the next stage of genocide is preparation. And so they decided to take all Jews, force them out of their homes just with a few bags that they could carry, and put them into ghettos. And ghettos was a neighborhood that was fenced off, and the Jews were to live in this neighborhood, which were at least 1,143 ghettos in the occupied Eastern Territories. The largest ghetto in Poland was the Warsaw Ghetto, and it held 400,000 Jews in a crowded area of 1.3 square miles. The vast majority of the ghetto's inhabitants died from disease, starvation, shooting, and then they were eventually deported to killing centers and concentration camps. One of the final stages in the genocide is extermination. And this is when Nazi Germany and its allies made 44,000 camps and incarceration sites, including ghettos. The perpetrators used these sites for a range of purposes, such as forced labor, detention of people thought to be enemies of the state, and for mass murder. Millions of people were imprisoned, mistreated, and murdered in various types of Nazi camps. Um, they murdered more than 3 million Jews in the killing centers alone. Only a small fraction of those imprisoned in Nazi camps survived. The Holocaust finally ended when Allied soldiers, such as the United States, liberated camps set free as they advanced into Germany. Many soldiers were horrified by what they saw. The guards and the Nazi leaders were captured, were put on trial at the Nuremberg after the war. The Nuremberg trial were the first time perpetrators of a genocide who were tried for crimes. Hitler himself decided to kill himself in a bunker the day before Germany was liberated by the Allies. And so this cartoon is put on by Disney. It's made by Disney in 1943, and it talks about how they raised young men to be Nazi soldiers. So a lot of questions that you may have is how did they get good people to treat others so poorly? And it was because it was the way that they were raised from birth. And I want you to make the connection with the giver on how kids are raised in their community to believe what the elders want them to believe. So you can take a moment and watch this Disney cartoon. And let's think about this. How is the attempt to create sameness in the Holocaust like the Society of the Giver? Because Hitler decided that non-Jewish, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Germans were the superior race. And he wanted to take away anyone who was different than that. And so he himself wanted to create a sameness and thought that he was creating this utopian society. Is the Holocaust an attempt for utopia? Ended up being a dystopian society. So you can think about these two questions. We're going to read about a couple of other genocides throughout the week and make the text-to-world connection, how utopians or attempts at utopia, sometimes through deranged individuals, end up being a dystopian society. So I know that this is a difficult subject to learn about, but it is important that we see these patterns and prevent them from happening anywhere in our world, and you will be learning about the Holocaust more in depth and reading Holocaust novels next year or in 8th grade. And so this is something that I think is important for you to understand. Um, Sorry about the dreary topic, but I hope that you have a good rest of your day.